I want to talk to you today about embarrassment. I am embarrassed with the state of my running right now, with the state of my running comeback. Back in May, when I decided to announce that I was making a comeback to running, I was just feeling so good. Like, my health was in such a good place. I felt like I had finally figured things out. Unfortunately, pretty shortly thereafter, the roller coaster ride continued, and it's just been so up and down. Some decent highs, but man, just crashing back down lows. And I have to admit that I'm feeling a sense of embarrassment about it, a sense of almost shame about it. Maybe it's natural when you're public about something, when you're posting on social media about a goal that you have or a project that you're undergoing or just something that you're trying to do. It's embarrassing to feel like you're barely even moving forward, barely even moving the needle with that thing. This health issue that I've been struggling with, really, I've been struggling with it for the past 8 years or so, 8 to 10 years especially, but really even longer than that. You know, I was seeing doctors and stuff for these issues when I was a kid, you know. I wish that there was just a definitive endpoint, you know. I think maybe you think about like I don't want to say cancer because I don't even want to remotely compare myself to someone with cancer, but let's just say for a second, someone who has cancer, they're diagnosed, they're in a hospital, you know, then they go into remission, and it's like, bam, there's this period. I know sometimes they can come back and stuff. Maybe there's probably a better example that I'm not thinking of right now. Maybe a virus that you totally eliminate and it's just gone, and it's just like 0 to 1, or it's binary like that. This thing that I'm struggling with is not, unfortunately, or at least it hasn't been for me. And I've read a lot of experiences with other people having similar experiences. Thus, it kind of creates this absolute roller coaster where things will improve. And that's really over the last year, things have definitely improved. There's no question that things have moved in a good direction. However, you'll get this high, you'll get things going well, and then boom, it'll just crash back down. And during those particularly bad down periods, I don't quite want to use the word bedridden because I think that's a little bit extreme. But I'm close to it on those days. And it'll be for several days in a row where I just can barely do anything. I mean, just the absolute bare minimum. I'm so thankful, to be honest with you. I'm lucky to have my wife and my family to kind of fill that gap on those days, you know, in those periods. Because if I didn't have that, I mean, I don't know what I would do. Because it's such a roller coaster ride, and because there's not necessarily like a specific end, you know, there's not necessarily like, all right, that's it, it's over, I finally cured it, which is part of why I don't necessarily talk about it specifics. I know that can probably be frustrating from your standpoint. I apologize, but part of it is because I would almost feel irresponsible saying, I cured this thing, here's how I did it, when I haven't. Like, when I haven't cured it. How can I possibly promote the way I'm doing things if I'm sitting there having periods where I'm damn near bedridden? I would just feel inappropriate. I would feel irresponsible doing that. And I think that the second part of that is also because I'm not working with doctors. I have in the past, believe me, I've seen a lot of doctors, taken a lot of medications, done a lot of tests, done a lot of ridiculous shit, spent a lot of money. And now actually I've actually had the best results I've ever had just from stuff I'm doing on my own. But because it is a medical issue, I recognize that there's a sense of responsibility with that, to where I don't want to just go all over promoting this thing and then, or this protocol or whatever. And the reality is it hasn't necessarily worked for me. It's working, I believe, but you know, maybe once I get to a certain point, I'll be more comfortable talking openly. I've had people message me privately and ask more specifics, maybe because they're going through something similar. And I've been open and transparent. I'm always willing to help people. But in terms of broadcasting it publicly, I just would feel a little bit irresponsible doing that. That creates a sense of embarrassment, I think, because when you have like a chronic health issue that's sort of under the radar, not necessarily something that, again, kills you, or I guess what I have, it could kill you eventually, but not necessarily like immediately fatal in the way that's like a serious cancer would be, or something of that nature. I'm sounding like the most insensitive prick probably talking about that. I'm not comparing myself to people with cancer. I'm more so saying that if that's part of your story, if you have cancer and you come back from it, in a way, I think it's almost easier for people to understand because there's a binary aspect to it. You have it, then you don't. You go into remission. I don't. Again, I just have to add, I'm not envying that. I'm not pretending that I'm in a worse scenario than that. Not at all. However, it can become very difficult to communicate what I'm going through, and I think that leads me to a sense of almost shame because I'm sitting here telling you I'm on this journey. I'm going to qualify for the Olympic Trials Marathon. I'm going to get back to running. I'm going to run fast, and yet I'll be bedridden for a time, or I'll be really sick for a time, and I won't make videos. I won't post. I won't train. And all I can think is I'm just beating myself up because I'm like, shit, not only am I not making progress towards my goals that I want to achieve, I'm also not, being honest and transparent with the people that do follow me. I know I don't have like a huge following, but it's been unbelievable the amount of messages that I've gotten from people, whether they're people around my age, maybe with young kids and jobs and that are trying to also do well running. I have high school and college kids who follow me that'll message me sometimes. I'm like, hell yeah, I love inspiring the next generation. That just gets me amped up. I'll have older people much, much older than me who will say that they find my videos inspiring. So part of why I'm making this video is sort of like an explainer of like, hey, let me explain why I've been so up and down. Let me explain why things have been so unresponsive. I've been so unresponsive and so kind of like quiet, having like dark periods, It's because this whole thing is still a struggle. Now, downstream from all that, and a little bit more obvious to something I can talk about a little bit more obviously, a little bit more openly, is just coming back from another calf injury. And believe me when I say that I fucking hate saying that. I have been trying to make a comeback to running. I really announced it in May. That's when I was like all in. I'm not dilly-dallying. I'm not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I'm all in on this thing. But really, I've been trying to make somewhat of a comeback to running for 3.5 years. You can check my YouTube. Early January of 2021 is when I first posted a video about trying to get back into running. Every single time I'll start running, maybe get a little bit of consistency, and then bam, I tear a calf muscle, soleus, gastroc, whatever. Every single time. I mean, it's happened over a dozen times at this point in the past few years. This year, things have been going better, and I attribute that, I don't want to say this too definitively, but it's something I believe is that as I've improved my health issue, I've lowered overall inflammation. That I know, I've lowered overall inflammation. I believe that has led to my body being more injury resilient, which is good, which is great. But here I am again, coming off a calf injury. I didn't run for 3 weeks, just ran like a little over 20 miles last week. Hoping for, 30 plus this week, but kind of here we are again. I mean, what is today? Today's November 11th. The Kiowa Island half is December 9th, I believe. So, it's like a month away. Last year, I was entered into that race and had to pull out because of a calf injury. Here we are again, possibly facing the same thing. I mean, I want to do everything I can to run it, and yet I also don't want to, like, screw myself long-term because that's not, my goal race. It's not like the big thing. But it's just, it's fucking embarrassing to be sitting here talking about the same old thing again. Here I am, still struggling with this illness. Here I am, still struggling with chronic injuries. Here I am, still not where I want to be. And yet, the reason I'm making this video and even in talking to you about it is that, I had a conversation with my wife about this the other day, how it kind of sounds kind of platitudey, I guess, but like basically the lows are part of the journey, man. Like it's not all positive. There's so many people on social media, and maybe it's our instinct as humans in a way to only post the positives. When do most people post Instagram stories? Usually when they travel or do something like luxurious or stay in a fancy hotel room or whatever. It's hard to share lows. It's hard to. I'm not like patting myself on the back. Like I said, I consider myself sort of a naturally fairly shameless person, which is why I post videos. But I'll admit that this has been tough to even talk about openly because I'm just like, fuck, man, I'm becoming an absolute broken record. At this point, I've got basically 3 years to run a pretty damn fast marathon. The Olympic Trials Marathon 2028. Usually the window closes in December of the year before, so that'll be December 27. That's about 3 years. If I continue on the path that I've been on over the last year, or certainly the last few years, I'm not even going to become close. Like, we need an absolute inflection point, which I think I'm working something up. I think something's in the works. But if I were to follow on the same trend that I've been on, I wouldn't even be close. So that's where sometimes it's hard to even talk about it. It's hard to even press record on the camera and make a video about it, because I'm just like, fuck, I'm just not even close. But then I think about those messages that I get. I think about the people that do follow me. I'm just like, damn, they want to hear the good and the bad, man. Like maybe eventually the bad becomes a little bit overwhelming, and I don't want to be a negative person by any means. I want to be a positive force in the world. But negative and kind of like the low periods, the bad parts, the not so pretty stuff, the ugly stuff, that's part of the reality. That's part of the journey, I guess. And so I wanted to share this with you to give you an update, let you know how things are going, and let you know that maybe I'm delusional, maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm just stupid, but I honest to God believe I'm still going to make it. I still believe it's going to happen. I still believe I'm going to find the way through all this and you know, run a fast as shit marathon. I'm 35 now. I just turned 35 last week. And, you know, to add to that, I think something that kills me sometimes, I'll see like former elite, former high-level athletes that will make a comeback to running. And it seems like within a matter of months, maybe even, you know, barely a few months, they're like back to elite level fitness. I'm just sitting there like, that is not my story, man. And to some degree, maybe it should make me proud, because it's like, hey, maybe my past running success was really because of hard work. It wasn't all just like raw talent. And yet, we're humans. Like, we want to, in a way, we don't want to believe we're talented, because we want to believe it's all the hard work and all of our internal factors. And yet, in another way, you're like, you know, being talented at something ain't so bad. That's kind of a good thing. So, you know, maybe I should be proud of that, but it definitely, that easy comeback, that like quickly getting back into an elite, fairly elite level, has not been my story, even in the slightest. I mean, not even close. So I've got a long ways to go. But I want to do my best to share the story, whether it's good or bad, whether it's an awesome workout or a fantastic training week, or whether it's a week where I couldn't even get out on a run because, you know, things flared up. So I want to do better about sharing all of that, because I think it's all important. You can't just share the highs. I can't just share the highs. I can't expect to make anything, to have anything even remotely interesting if all I share is the good stuff. Especially because for me, there's not been that much. That sounds really depressing. Like, I've got a great family, everything's great, but there hasn't been that much good stuff on this front, and I'm embarrassed about it. But I want to push through that, because that's not a good enough reason to stop. That's not even remotely a good enough reason to stop. I still believe I can do it. I still believe I can make this happen, and I thank you for coming along the journey. I thank you for this is the first video of mine you've ever watched, whether you've watched all of mine, none of mine, some of mine, commented, not commented, whatever. I really just appreciate you for sticking with me through it. So thank you, and let's keep it going.